Welcome to my channel, Worldwise. I don't think people understand just how different the Chernobyl disaster was from any other nuclear catastrophe in history. When we think of nuclear devastation, our minds instantly conjure up the haunting images of mushroom clouds rising over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, symbols of unimaginable destruction and the dawn of the atomic age. But in 1986, the world witnessed a different kind of nuclear nightmare at Chernobyl, one that didn't come from war, but from a catastrophic accident. The explosion at Reactor 4 released nearly 400 times more radioactive material than both atomic bombs combined, turning a quiet night into a global crisis. Instead of a single blinding blast, Chernobyl unleashed a radioactive fire that raged for 10 days. Invisible poison drifted on the wind, spreading contamination across vast stretches of Europe, reaching places hundreds of miles away from the reactor. This wasn't the result of conflict or an enemy attack. It was a disaster born from a deadly mix of flawed reactor design, human mistakes, and a culture of secrecy that delayed the world's response. The fallout didn't just vanish. It seeped into the soil, tainted the water, and poisoned crops and livestock, rendering the land uninhabitable for centuries and creating a radioactive legacy that still lingers today. Unlike the bomb's instant devastation, Chernobyl's effects crept silently and relentlessly, causing thousands of deaths, countless illnesses, and leaving scars that would haunt generations yet unborn. The disaster forced humanity to confront the terrifying reality of what happens when we lose control over nuclear power, a lesson written in invisible ink, but impossible to ignore. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant stood near Pripyat, Ukraine, a showcase of Soviet ambition and technological prowess. It was a symbol of the USSR's drive to harness the atom, not just for energy, but as a demonstration of its place on the world stage. Built to power millions and symbolize progress, Pripyat was a model city for plant workers, filled with young families and modern comforts. The city boasted schools, parks, and cultural centers, all designed to attract the best and brightest to this remote corner of Ukraine. The plant's RBMK reactors were unique to the USSR, cheap, powerful, and able to produce both electricity and weapons-grade plutonium. This dual purpose made them a cornerstone of Soviet energy and military strategy, setting them apart from Western designs. But these reactors had fatal flaws, unstable at low power and lacking proper containment. Their design made them vulnerable to dangerous reactions, especially during routine tests or emergencies. These dangers were known to Soviet scientists but hidden from operators and the public. Warnings were ignored or suppressed, as the pressure to meet ambitious goals overshadowed safety concerns. The very design meant to demonstrate Soviet strength would ultimately lead to disaster, exposing the cracks beneath the empire's confident facade. When the unthinkable happened, the consequences were catastrophic, reaching far beyond the plant, the city, and even the borders of the Soviet Union. At the heart of Chernobyl was the RBMK reactor, controlled by rods meant to absorb neutrons and regulate the nuclear reaction. But the control rods had graphite tips, a design meant to boost efficiency, but with a deadly side effect. When inserted, the graphite tips briefly increased reactivity before the rods could slow the reaction. In an unstable reactor, this flaw could, and did, trigger disaster. Operators believed the emergency shutdown button was their safety net, unaware it could act as a detonator. The secret was kept from those running the plant. In a crisis, this hidden flaw would seal their fate in seconds. On April 25, 1986, a safety test at Reactor 4 spiraled out of control. Due to errors and pressure, operators withdrew almost all control rods, leaving the reactor dangerously unstable. As the test began, cooling water dropped, power surged, and the operators hit the emergency shutdown. The graphite-tipped rods triggered a massive spike in power instead of stopping it. In seconds, 2 explosions tore through the reactor, blasting radioactive material into the night. The disaster was set in motion by a fatal mix of design flaws and human error. At 1:23 a.m., April 26, 1986, Chernobyl exploded. Firefighters rushed in, unaware of the radiation, battling a blaze that was actually burning graphite from the reactor core. Without protection, they suffered lethal doses within minutes. Many died agonizing deaths in the weeks that followed. The authorities downplayed the disaster, failing to warn Pripyat's 50,000 residents. As radioactive dust drifted, children played outside and crowds watched the glowing ruins, unknowingly exposed to deadly fallout. The true scale of the catastrophe was hidden, even as the sky burned with invisible poison. Chernobyl's horror was only beginning. In the immediate aftermath of the explosion, the Soviet government scrambled to conceal the disaster, desperate to maintain an image of control. For days, officials denied anything was wrong, even as radioactive clouds drifted across Europe. The truth only emerged when radiation alarms sounded in Sweden, forcing the world to confront the scale of the catastrophe. Pripyat's evacuation came 36 hours too late. Residents, unaware of the invisible danger, went about their lives until the order finally came. In a matter of hours, families boarded buses, leaving behind homes, memories and possessions, never to return. The city became a time capsule, frozen in the moment of its sudden abandonment. As the reactor burned uncontrollably, a new and terrifying threat emerged. If the molten nuclear core reached the water reservoirs below, it could trigger a second, even more powerful explosion. Such a blast would have devastated much of Europe, spreading radioactive fallout across the continent and endangering millions. In a race against time, 3 courageous volunteers braved the radioactive flooded basement to drain the water. Their mission was perilous, but their actions averted a disaster of unimaginable scale. And against all odds, all 3 survived, becoming unsung heroes of Chernobyl. In the months that followed, thousands of liquidators, soldiers, engineers, and civilians risked their lives in deadly conditions to contain the site. They worked tirelessly, often with minimal protection, to build a massive concrete sarcophagus over Reactor 4 in just 206 days, sealing away the radioactive core. Decades later, as the original sarcophagus began to crumble, a new solution was needed. Engineers constructed a colossal steel arch, sliding it over the ruins to contain the radiation for the next 100 years, a feat of modern engineering and a testament to ongoing vigilance. Today, the Chernobyl exclusion zone remains, a ghostly landscape where nature has reclaimed the empty streets. Wild animals roam through abandoned buildings, and the silence is broken only by the wind, serving as a haunting reminder of what was lost. Chernobyl stands as a permanent reminder of the cost of nuclear hubris, a warning to future generations etched into the landscape and history of the world. If you want to keep exploring stories like this, check out my next video, Watching Now.